Hi, welcome back to Ninja Warrior Fam, where we share tips and tricks from our obstacle racing adventures. My name is John, and today I want to talk to you about how to build endurance with easy runs. I'm talking about this now because it's something that I wish I had understood when I first got back into running a few years ago. Unfortunately, I didn't, and I spent a lot of time working way harder than I needed to and not improving at the rate that I could have been. So let's get into it. First off, what do I mean by endurance? Well, for the purposes of this video and for what I'm talking about, endurance is simply the ability to keep going at any pace faster than a walk for a given length of time. So if you can run for 50 miles, you've got the endurance for 50 miles. If you can run for 1 mile, you've got the endurance for 1 mile. Simple as that. Building endurance requires physical adaptation. In order to physically adapt our bodies, we need to put stress on our muscles and our hearts, the parts of our bodies most important to running. Running is primarily an aerobic activity, although it does require some leg strength, and certainly leg strength can improve your pace. But keep in mind, we're not worried about pace right now. Now, the great news is that you don't actually have to do hard work in order to build endurance. You just need to stress your body long enough to trigger those physical adaptations. So what do I mean by easy? Well, when I say that you can build endurance with easy runs, I mean just that. The run itself should feel easy. Your effort level doesn't have to be that high, just consistent and long-lasting. And by long, what I mean is long for you. So don't compare yourself to somebody else. You're easy, you're long, these things are personal. In physiological terms, your breathing and your heart rate should both be elevated but controlled. They shouldn't be excessive, out of control, anything like that. You should feel like you can maintain this pace almost indefinitely, or at the very least, for a lot longer than you might maintain what you would normally consider a running pace, right? This is maybe what you might call a light jog. Okay, so how do you tell if your run was easy enough? Well, obviously, like I said before, it should feel easy. So when you finish your run, your heart rate and breathing should return to normal fairly quickly. You shouldn't feel exhausted, although you might be tired. Tired is good, exhausted is bad. If you feel like you need to lay down on the sidewalk, you've overdone it. That wasn't an easy run. If you're like, whew, that was a run, and then you maybe walk it off and you're fine, that was an easy run. Okay, so what about heart rate monitors? Well, some people like to use them. For me, I feel like they're not really worth the money because I don't think they tell me anything that I don't already know just from paying attention to my body. But they are a tool, they provide you with measurable data, and if you're into that, go for it. For those of you using heart rate monitors, an easy run is typically around 60 to 65% of your max heart rate. But keep in mind, your heart rate can be affected by your sleep, nutrition, the temperature, the weather, your relationships and stress levels, all of these things. So take that as a guideline rather than a rule. Okay, so say you're like me, you don't want to drop a bunch of money on a heart rate monitor, and the good ones are kind of expensive. But you do want maybe a concrete way to decide, is this run at the appropriate level for what I'm trying to achieve? Is it easy enough that I can build endurance and then go out and do it again tomorrow? If you're that kind of person, I recommend using the talk test. Now, there are a billion ways to do this. What I personally do is while I'm out running, I'll ask myself out loud, can I still carry on a conversation? And then I'll answer, yes, I can carry on a conversation. And if I can do that without gasping or struggling to get the words out, then I know that my run is easy. And if I can't, if I feel like, whew, I'm dying here, okay, that's not an easy run, right? So again, it's helpful, but it kind of comes back to what Obi-Wan said, trust your feelings. So how long do you have to run to build endurance? Well, this obviously varies hugely based on your personal fitness level, right? It's all about you here and what you can handle and what's easy for you. For me, when I first really got back into running after my knee surgery, just continuing to move for 10 minutes was a struggle. Now, a few years later, I can run comfortably for over an hour and come out of it feeling great. A little tired, sure, but overall, great. For beginners, I suggest starting out the way that I did. Start slow and short. Take it easy and build up from there. So you might start with around 10 to 20 minutes as your goal, continuous running at a very easy pace. Again, just maybe slightly faster than walking. It can even be at your walking pace and just go through the motions of running to build your body up and get used to that. It's different, it's a skill, and it takes practice. So, don't feel like there's any point that is too low or slow to start. Do you, and then build progressively on top of that. As a beginner, I suggest adding either time, or better yet, an additional day of running into your week every 3 to 4 weeks as you feel comfortable. The story is different for trained athletes. If you've been doing this for a while, if you're like me, you can run for an hour and feel good. That's great, but unfortunately it also means that your body is already used to lower levels of effort. So as a trained athlete, you're going to have to run for at least 30 minutes to deplete those muscle glycogen stores and get any kind of adaptive response. And if it's a 30-minute run, what's easy is probably a much faster pace than, say, your hour or 2-hour runs. On the other hand, it's also very possible to run too long. Now, this is true for beginners, and it's also true for experienced athletes. You can push your body too far. There's a point for each person where the diminishing returns that you get in terms of endurance adaptation are overshadowed by the risk of injury and of overstressing your body that you're putting yourself into. You don't want to overtrain, and you definitely don't want to injure yourself on a training run and then be out for 3 days, 4 days, a week, 2 weeks. Who knows? I mean, if you roll an ankle, you could be sitting out for quite a while. So be smart and don't overdo it. Now, specifically for trained athletes, and really this applies pretty broadly to almost anybody, there is a fairly concrete point where those diminishing returns are directly exceeded by your injury risks. According to Sean Bearden over at Science of Ultra, who's an experienced ultra running coach and a bioenergeticist, super smart dude, he puts that mark at around 3 hours, even for highly trained athletes. So you're maybe pro level, way better than me. You still shouldn't be running for longer than 3 hours if the goal of that run is to build endurance. If you're testing equipment, testing a nutrition plan, a hydration plan, sure, maybe then you need to go run for 6 hours, 12 hours, I don't know. But that is going to put a huge strain on your body. You're going to need a ton of extra recovery time, and you're still really not getting much more endurance adaptation out of those 12 hours than if you would just run for 3 hours. Okay, so on the topic of overtraining, this is something that is a concern for both beginners and, like I said, trained athletes. For beginners, it's especially a concern because if you injure yourself, if you overdo it, you are running the risk of a serious injury because your body is not maybe in great shape. Certainly, I wasn't in great shape, and I had a very serious injury that took me out for more than a year. So these things happen. The best way to avoid overtraining is to pay attention to your body. That's what got me. I was not paying attention to the pains that I was feeling. I overdid it, and I injured myself. Don't do that. All right, pay attention. Take the recovery time that you need. If you're experiencing a chronic or persistent pain, talk to your doctor. Be smart and take care of yourself first. The training will wait. It'll be there for you. You need to be smart and make sure that you're healthy enough to do that training and actually get something out of it, rather than taking yourself out of the game entirely by overdoing it or doing too much too soon. So how often should you run? Well, if your goal is to build endurance, this is an easy one, as often as possible. This is why I talk about overtraining in this video, because you need to be smart when you're trying to build endurance. If you're maybe in an off season doing some base building, if you're just getting into running and you can't run for 30 minutes yet, endurance is way more important than speed. It's great if you can sprint for a block, but then if you have to walk for 2 or 3 blocks after that to recover, you're not going to be very fast. The person who maintains a slow, steady pace throughout is going to destroy your time. In any kind of a race, half marathon, anything, going hard is not always better. Okay, so let's talk specifics. For beginners, like I said, bare minimum you should be aiming to run every other day if you're building endurance. This obviously is schedule allowing. I know people are busy. I'm a dad, I work full time, I make these videos as a hobby, I run a podcast, I do all kinds of stuff that keeps me very busy and restricts my schedule. So you have to make this a priority. You have to carve out that time if this is important to you. So as a beginner, every other day is a great place to start. That's 3 or 4 days a week. Setting aside maybe 30 minutes to put on some gym clothes, go out for a short run, come back, change and get back to whatever life is calling you to do. Now, as you progress, you are going to have to put more time into your running if you want to keep seeing results. You can't just do the same thing and expect to improve over a long period of time. So for trained athletes or for beginners who are moving into that trained phase where they've been running for maybe 5 or 6 months and they've built up some endurance, you want to, again, be aiming to run as often as possible. I'd suggest going for 5 to 6 days a week, again, schedule allowing. Aim for a minimum of an hour per run for these easy runs. That's going to allow you to build a great level of endurance without committing an excessive amount of time. Now, the other thing to keep in mind here is that consistency is key. It's better to run for 30 minutes at a time, 6 times a week, than to run for 3 hours on a Saturday and laze around the rest of the week. It's going to feel a lot better because if you spend most of your days not running and then you go run for 3 hours, that's going to suck. Like, you are going to regret that. B, you're going to get a much better response because you're not going to overdo it on your body on any of those days, but you will consistently be pushing your body to make those small adaptations and then recover. So this is going to be a more positive experience mentally, a more positive experience physically, and it's going to be a more effective training experience for you. Okay fam, that's all for me today. Thanks again for watching. I hope you learned something. If this video helped you, please hit those like and subscribe buttons. Please share it with any of your running friends that you think would benefit from it. And definitely let me know in the comments if you think I missed anything, if there's anything you particularly liked or didn't know. I'd love to hear from you.